Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So, in a few moments, you guys will be hearing the episode 25 of Savages Unscripted, and this was recorded on Saturday, January 25th, but it is currently January 26th, and as some of you may well be aware of, there was some tragic news this morning. The death and passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter and a few others in a terrible accident. And this is something that honestly, personally, is affecting me. Kobe Bryant is a huge part of my childhood, and I know many others. And those of us here at the studio, we're feeling it, and we know others are too. And we just wanted to just take this moment just to honor him. We are naming this episode 24 in honor of the Black Mamba. And like I said, in a bit, we're going to play this episode for you guys. I just wanted to say that if you have any loved ones, if you have any quarrels, just put it aside. Love each other and enjoy the time you guys have together. Thank you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Savages Unscripted. We're here in the studio. It's another Monday morning, Saturday night for us, but it's me and my co-host. Who do I have today?
Papi Chulo's back from another weekend break.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you were ready for this. You probably didn't want him on today, but he's here and you have to deal with it. Just get over it. Deal with it.
Hey.
But how have you been, man?
I've been better. I couldn't make the episode last time because, a little accident happened, but I just want to get back to the podcast. So yeah, I'm getting good. Things are looking up. How about yourself?
I've been really good, dude. I've been busy doing adulting stuff. As you know, I'm kind of in between jobs, just doing all these things. We're planning stuff with the podcast. I've told you some ideas that so for those who don't know, Al's just been, very busy lately. He's been doing his own thing. He had a little accident. He's fine. I'm pretty sure he's alive. This isn't some ghost I'm speaking with right now. But a lot of the planning we've been doing has been me and other people talking. Al's finally back. He's in the mix of things. But yeah, we have some interesting ideas that we want to get underway soon. We subtly mentioned it in the last episode, Elias and myself, but we brought somebody else into the Savages family. We're not going to introduce him yet, but behind the scenes, he's already doing a lot.
That sounds like he's really excited for this, man. I'm surprised we didn't get him on board earlier.
I like looking back at, when we started, and I like doing that just in general. I don't know if you ever do that out where, like, what is it right now? What are we, like, end of January, when you look back at last January, and you think of where you were, what job you were in, or if you were in school, or whatever the fuck you were doing, like, where were you? Like, what were you doing last January?
Man, I think that was just to get ready back to school, right? Just going back, dragging yourself back to classes. Yeah, that was my last quarter, actually. So I was having a blast.
Oh, man.
I was not caring about classes, and I still ended up getting some solid grades. But that was like whatever, you just go to class, do the same homework, same thing over and over. It's not something so thrilling and dynamic.
Yeah, but your life was completely different a whole year ago today.
Oh,
and like for me, I was at Amazon exactly a year ago today. It was probably on this day a year ago where I was having that cupcake. It was probably a year ago because it was around this time, past my birthday, where they had that birthday round table and I got the stale cupcake. So that was a year ago today, and I think I quit like in February or March. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Just like, damn, like a year ago, I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was just in this job where I just needed a quick paycheck. And now I'm doing something where I'm getting this experience. And now I'm moving up again. It's just crazy how I think day to day, we don't see those differences. We don't see the progress we're making. But when you look back a month or even a year later, like, fuck, a lot is happening. Life goes by quickly.
I remember when you told me that story again of when I think you messed up your ankles just working in Amazon.
I messed up everything there. I messed up my life.
I messed up my life, you said?
Yeah. I My shoulder. Okay, so the main thing that was hurting me was I was messing up my shoulders. No, oh, but you're thinking about was my feet. No, so right before I graduated college, which was the spring of 2018, I was working 3 jobs and I was just constantly on my feet. And I didn't know it, but I fractured both my ankles playing basketball. There were like little fractures in both ankles. But I was working these 3 jobs. I was constantly on my feet. I wasn't properly resting. And I made it so much worse. So that summer and the rest of that year, I was basically in bed rest or just very lightly walking. And I just fucked up my ankles. But I think that's what you're talking about. But Amazon came a lot later. But Amazon brought on some new injuries, like injuries to my soul, my emotions.
It's just, yeah, see, look at all that progress. Now, the thing, now that you asked me that too, is that I never would have thought, we could have made something independently at least. I always imagined myself just, getting a job, getting a promotion, that was it. Not really willing to risk, or not even risk, just do a podcast. Get your voice out there. That was something that was never lingering around my mind. I know we were talking about it during that time, but it was crazy how much progress has, or at least change we made.
Yeah, and a year ago, in terms of the podcast, it was just an idea, and I think at the time we were those people that we would have ideas, but we wouldn't follow through with it. It was just, this would be nice. And now we're actually doing this. At the time, I'm gonna be honest, once I graduated, I was like, I'm never gonna see this guy again. We were probably just gonna talk on Xbox. And like now, you and I talk more than we talk to our other roommates. And at the time, I was closer to them. That's what's so bizarre,
Yeah, same, ditto. Like, this guy's all right, but I won't talk to him anymore.
Yeah, this guy's yeah, for me, I would look at, I'll be like, I don't know what this guy says half the time. I'm just gonna nod and wave. But let's jump right into this, Al. I told you about a little dumbbell story that happened to me yesterday. I am salty. And all people right. know I rarely get salty. I don't get salty. It's not me. It's not in my job description. But so I live in an apartment, and for the longest time, I haven't had a legit gym membership. I do a lot of home workouts. I do some like CrossFit and stuff like that, a lot of burpees, and I don't use a lot of those pieces of equipment. But the main thing that I use at this little community gym is the dumbbells. Like, dumbbells are very important. You can do a lot with different dumbbells. It's very versatile. It's not just curling. So there's this little community gym, like very small. Like, it's so small where if 2 people are in there already, it's basically packed. Like, it's too much. And so I usually go every night right after work. And I went yesterday and I was excited. I was ready for this. I get back from work. I drink my black coffee because that's like my pre-workout. I'm like pumped up for some iron. I'm going to go to the gym, pump some iron. I go to the gym and half the dumbbells are missing. Somebody stole some dumbbells. Who the fuck steals dumbbells? Oh my God. And they stole all the ones that I needed. All the ones that I use.
There were probably some haters from Savages unscripted.
Yeah. Like the smallest one there was I think 20 pounds. And I was like, this isn't enough for what I need. Like, I need the bigger weight right now. Like, I was just so mad. And I wasn't mad. I was a little disappointed. And I was like, really? Like, well, now this person has something to carry besides their shame. I don't know. But I'm just glad they could at least carry it out. At least I know they can carry it. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I decided now I need a legit gym membership because I can't deal with this.
That'd be funny if the person who stole those dumbbells was one of our roommates. You just didn't know it.
Probably Elias.
The intern? Yeah, man. With me. Well, yeah, like he's already been showing that he likes to fuck around with you a lot. So maybe, tomorrow you might find him again.
Is that his end game? He's slowly messing with me? Something, I like pulling little pranks on people, and I've always been with different roommates I live with, but I do little insignificant pranks where you won't notice, but if you notice, it annoys you. And years ago, before I met Angel and you, I lived with some other people, and there was this one guy, he was in the kitchen pretty often. We were close, so it was not just some stranger. I'm not just fucking around with him, but he would have his phone on the counter, and I would just move it a foot to the right. When he wasn't looking, and then when he'd look at it and be like, oh, okay, I didn't know I put it there. And then when he turned away again, I would move it somewhere else. And I would just do little things like this. And there was one day where I think I moved his phone from like the couch to the counter or something. Mm-hmm. And I was in my room and I hear him talking to himself, and he said, "I need some sleep. Why am I doing this?" In my head, I'm like, yes, it's working. But I like doing those little like harmless pranks like that. Have you ever pulled a prank?
I pull pranks too, but mine are more bothersome for people I do with. Typically, I remember when I was little, I would definitely pull a lot of pranks to my mom and stuff, where I would also do that, not move her stuff a couple inches, like let's say her gardening stuff. I would hide it or place it somewhere else, but to the spots that she would also place it on. So she had like 5 different places she would put it, and I would always rotate it around every time. And she would get so annoyed until one day she caught me doing it. But and then I would also do like stuff like, I remember my grandpa would like to trim his beard and stuff, so at times I would always get his trimmer and then get on top of a table or not, on top of a chair, put some water on the top, some classic pranks, and then wait for him to just walk inside. But yeah, those I would do.
I remember when I was living on campus, same year when I was living with these other guys. There was these girls that lived right beside us, and we got in a little prank war. And it was like little meaningless pranks. And I don't know if you remember, but on your dorms, you always had like your name tags. They put your name on the door so you know who lives there. And it was just like little meaningless pranks. So we'll move our name tags around. But I think we got to the point where these girls got so annoyed and they ripped up my fucking name tag and they put it in the dumpster outside. They took it out to the dumpster and they put it there. And I was like, I wasn't even really a part of these pranks. It was my roommates. I was just the one that was like, hey, you guys should do this. But apparently they chose me as like the representative. And hey, let's take this name tag and let's rip it up and let's toss it outside. But man, that was cruel.
But bro,
I'm just the lover. I'm not a fighter.
You were the mastermind behind all this, Dave.
But people don't know that, and that's the point of my facade, Al. You see, like, I give people ideas, but I'm in the back. People see me as this quiet, harmless person. Like, oh no, he could never prank us, but I'm the one pulling all the strings. That's me. And I guess they figured it out. They fucked up my name tag. They threw it outside. It was like in the trash. That's cruel. You don't mess with a man's name tag. You just don't do that. But yeah, that was my dumbbell story, man. Somebody stole dumbbells from a community gym. Who does that? Like, you're a part of that community. You're a part of that community. Like, why do you, like, you're essentially stealing from yourself, you dumbass. I don't know.
Just expect to view it on Craigslist tomorrow morning. That's all I'm going to tell you. That's a cool, like, what, $15-$20 there? It
depends on how much they weigh. It's typically similar to the weight from what I've seen. But, man, I'm gonna buy milk gallons and just use that to curl. Or like when you bring in groceries and you're too lazy to take a second trip, so you have like 10 bags in each hand. You're like dropping shit. That's gonna be me. I'm just gonna carry like 3 gallons per hand, 1 gallon per finger, and just curl them. That's my new workout. I'm gonna call it hectoring.
I can see you doing that and then putting them up on those Facebook videos, where they do like those gym videos in the prison, or those gym videos that they make their own home style gyms with like rocks and shit like that.
Oh yeah, that's my new goal. I'm gonna start a trend.
What's it gonna be?
So if I ever mention anything in the podcast, if anybody wants to do what I said, let's pull a hashtag hectoring. Let's do it. Let's start a trend. Like, why wait for other trends when we can just make our own? Like Savages Unscripted, we can make our own new trend. I've seen those things where people pile the rocks on top of each other, or planking back in the day. I just don't recommend eating Tide Pods. If you guys do that, I will not back you. I am no longer a part of this community. But if you want to start a trend, let's add a hashtag. Let's do it. Hey, Al, speaking of trends, have you seen anybody wear those male rompers? Did that ever take off?
No, not really. I saw some big stars using it, but I'm pretty sure the high-end society is still using that.
If I got one for you, would you wear it?
Hell no. What the fuck? That's not my style.
Like, Come on, it's not even coming out of your wallet.
Okay, you know what? You provide me the romper and the receipt. I'll wear it one time and return it.
I can see you wearing like a nice floral one.
Whoa.
Hey, I don't judge you. We should get one for the intern.
Oh my god. No. Don't even put those two together. Let's go to our topics, okay?
All right, Al, what did you have in mind?
Yeah, that's kind of like a criminal offensive now that we're thinking those two things together. And that reminds me of what I wanted to bring up, which was Narcos. So ever since my little incident happened, I started rewatching the full Narcos series. And I recently finished it. And I was just scrolling through Netflix, and I just noted how many drug-related shows there are. How, it's already been a thing for a while, but I'm just interested in how much it's taken off. And at times, it just makes me wonder, like, what's the one thing that intrigues people to come watch it? Or was it, a specific person that brought light to this, and then it's just, a wildfire where people just want to keep watching more and more of what this is, what that industry is? And I've always been thinking, I don't know, what do you think is a big appeal of watching these type of, drug trafficking shows type of thing? Like, I know Pablo Escobar was a big reason why, but what else could it be? Is there some sort of psychology, where,
I think I know it.
Because before we go there though, like just one little example I had was, I was just thinking, that episode in South Park where they were bringing up couples killing each other and how the parents really wanted to watch that, like those criminal shows. And that made me think, is there like something in the back of our minds that we don't really think we would appeal, but it could just be turned on by just watching something like that?
I think deep down we all have and this doesn't sound like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not. I think deep down we all have like that fucked up, like darker side. The thing too with a lot of these narco shows is they're based on true events. This is stuff that actually does happen. It's not just freaking sci-fi. It's not just, it's on TV. It's not real. No, like a lot of stuff is things that to us relatively, like it seems like it'd be pretty far-fetched, but it isn't. This actually happens or has happened. And I think it's just more so that, like, the idea of these dark things happening. And I think we kind of not relate to those things, but I think we have a thirst for those darker things. Have you heard of the show You on Netflix right now?
No.
I did not want to talk about this today, but I would just briefly mention it.
Yeah.
Because it's something I want to talk about like on another day, but it's the show that people are watching right now. I guess season 2 just came out like a few weeks ago. And without killing it too much, and I think you should watch it. I think you would find it entertaining, but it is psychological, so I think you would enjoy it.
Ooh.
But it's more so from the point of view of this guy who works in a bookstore, and essentially he's a stalker. But in his head, and like a good chunk of the show is internal monologue, so you're hearing his thoughts. You're seeing him stalk people, and you're hearing his thoughts, his thought process. But in his head, he's a hero. He's a good guy, and he's helping these women. And I think when you're watching this, and what's really ironic, because I was watching this, and I realized, like, this guy, he's a fucked up person. He's a stalker, and he's doing some sketchy things, but he's the main character. In some ways, we're gonna relate to him. So that got me thinking, like, this is just very, like, it's weird. It's this weird paradox that it's this fucked up person that we're relating to. But I think that's what it is. I think there's a fucked up part of ourselves that, I'm not saying we're all stalkers, but maybe some people like a certain push and they would do certain things, I think we all have that dark side of ourselves. But in terms to the Narcos thing, like, I remember when that blew up, and that's a huge thing in novellas as well. My parents are always watching like a new Narcos novella. There's always a new one. But I think it's just that dark side that we don't access every day. Maybe we're good people during the day and on social media, but when we're watching this stuff, like, we're exposing ourselves to the darker side of these things. I don't know. I was actually really just thinking about that recently, but not really with the Narcos thing. But what show are you watching in particular?
Just Narcos, the original, Colombia.
That's the one with Pablo Escobar?
Pablo Escobar in the first 2 seasons, and then the third season is Cali Cartel.
Dude, that guy played a great Pablo Escobar.
You know what was funny? Actually, I just want to point something out or add to it before we go any further. I'm always a big advocate of balance. So I do think, yeah, we do have a hunger for maybe some negative side, and that's because we both have positive and negative aspects of ourselves. And that when we view this, maybe it satisfies that sort of need, even though it's not something we always want to expose to because it's not really particularly most of our personality. It could definitely be something that it's getting satisfied for. But yeah, going back, Narcos, I love that Pablo Escobar. That was the reason why I picked that show between all those hundreds of Pablo Escobar shows out there. But the thing that was funny was my parents kept talking shit about him because he said he sounds American. His accent isn't Colombian. And I was just like, hey, that guy, like, you don't really have to go so specific on the stuff that you say. You know, maybe it sounds a little weird, but I agree with you. He killed it when it came to. He literally killed it when it came to being Escobar. Like, especially
What you gotta do though, Al, is you gotta look at your parents and say, "Okay, boomer."
Okay. They're not even boomers. I don't even know what the hell they are. But yeah, go back.
There's something. There's something in between boomer and something else. If they're not millennials, they're boomers.
They're mixed.
That's
they're
my
mixed.
rule. But because I watched Narcos as well. Because they eventually did another Narcos, right? There's the Mexico one.
Mm-hmm. That's the one I'm gonna get on right now.
I didn't watch that one. I watched just the original one, so I caught up. Even the Cali one, like I finished that one too. But if I'm correct, the guy who played Pablo Escobar did not speak Spanish before he played the part. I think he learned it for this role.
It sounds like if he would have, because I don't know if it's just me, but I noticed kind of his Spanish getting progressively better as the episodes went on. At least when it came to be more fluent.
Yeah, because when I watch like a show or a movie, like I like to know like what's going on in the background of this stuff. Like that kind of entertains me. Like, you know, those little trivia, all those little fun facts. And you know, like I said, I haven't seen Narcos since like it came out, that one. So that was years ago. We were probably living on campus together, right? When that last season came out, probably. But if I'm correct, and someone can correct me on this, but he didn't not only just learn Spanish for that, but he was studying in a university in Colombia, I believe.
Oh, really?
So he was there in Colombia learning the Spanish. So yeah, like a lot of it is kind of fabricated. Like, yeah, you know, that's not really the Colombian accent, but he was learning it and he was learning the Spanish for this role and he killed it, dude. Like each scene with him. And that's what's funny because now we're talking about this. Like he's this dark character that did some fucked up things, but when you see him on screen, you're just so entertained and you're so into the scene. Like he was so good. And this isn't a spoiler. Like Pablo Escobar died in real life, but
spoiler
you know when
alert.
he dies, like
How many?
spoiler alert: George Washington dies eventually. He died eventually. Like when he died in the show, like I was actually a little sad. Like, he was a really good character.
That was your role model right there.
That was my role model, Pablo Escobar, all the way.
Oh my god.
No, like they did it really good. Like it felt like a big part of the show died.
It did. Like I didn't even go back to. Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't even.
No, it's good.
Finish or even start the third. I actually started the third season for like the first 10 minutes, but I didn't even think back to go watch it. Like that was it for me.
That was the end of season 2.
When I stopped watching it, or when he died.
Oh no, when he died, season 2.
Yeah,
was that season 2?
That was the last episode.
I remember my big thing because when you kill a big character in a TV show and you add another season, that's kind of scary because you're losing, like I said, a big chunk of this show, like this very essence of it. And I remember when they announced the third season, I thought, fuck, like it's not going to be the same. But I don't know if you're caught up with the third season, but that was actually really good.
It was really good.
I really enjoyed it, and I was surprised because I went in thinking like, oh, it's gonna be a train wreck. Like Pablo Escobar's not in it. Like this show was because of him, but it wasn't. He was an important part of it, but Narcos goes beyond him. He played a huge chunk of his narco history, but Pablo Escobar isn't narco history. He's just a part of it. Yeah, that was a really good show. I'm gonna have to catch up. I heard the Mexico one's really good too. I had never seen it though.
I can't, not to be offensive or anything or sound like Trump, but I can't take Michael Pena, or not Michael Pena. Is that the new actor from Narcos Mexico?
I think so.
I can't take him seriously. I just see him, and I always think back of the comedy shows. I never could see him as a badass as like Javier Pena was in the original Narcos. And that
when you said not to sound like Trump, I thought you were going to say I can't take Mexicans seriously. I thought you were going to say that.
Oh, hey, this is not me. This is Hector talking.
No, I'm Mexican, so I'm joking on myself too. Like I thought that's what he meant. But
oh my god! Well, you're whitewashed, so
I don't get offended by jokes. Like I think you can tell when a joke's meant as a joke. Elias and I were talking about this recently. I think it was in the last podcast. We were talking about joking with people, and you have to know that person. You know, like
oh yeah,
like for me and Elias, like there's times where something fucked up will happen in our day, but we'll do something where eventually we'll joke about it, and you have to observe that person. Like, you know, are they budging? Are they going to bite on this joke? Are they going to go back and forth? And there's a certain point where you just know, like, all right, I got to drop it. But with me, like when people tell me like Mexican jokes or just any jokes that might have to do with me, like I'm just like, oh, it's a joke. It's like it's meant comedically, and if it offends me, I can just be honest. I'm not just going to hold it in and tweet about them later like this asshole hates Mexicans, you know? Like, no, I'm just going to be honest. I think people aren't honest anymore with each other.
And you shouldn't even take it that seriously. Come on, it's not your life. It's just let it go, you know. It's worse to just hold on to it rather than letting it go, like you said. But yeah, like I actually wanted to touch on one thing was that you mentioned was when Pablo Escobar died, like kind of the show kind of wore off, but season 3, like you said, was great, and that's what definitely let the show expand to Narcos Mexico. But the thing about the main character, the big character dying in the show, it always lets an opportunity for the supporting characters or the second-hand characters to be something bigger. And that's what you saw with Javier Pena. That guy, you know, he was cool with his sidekick dude in the first 2 seasons, but in the 3rd season, he really took off. And that's where I feel not the character overall, but even the actor really got his career going as in the big lights. But yeah, that was a really great show.
I think it's a really interesting topic. Now that we're back on this, the idea of having like a villain that you see, or like a bad guy as a protagonist, as more of a main character, and when you start to see them as more than just a bad guy, I think a lot of times when you see like all these superhero movies, the bad guys are just very simple. They're just doing something bad. Let's take them down. Let's stop them. But we've discussed this, and I think a big reason why Thanos was so critical was there was a reason for what he was doing. They showed that, like, you know, there's this loss of resources, and it's affecting stuff. You know, like there's this overpopulation. But the way they showed his story, like you may not agree with the way he's doing things, but you understand why he's doing it. And that's the same thing with Pablo Escobar. When you see Narcos, like you see his home life and his kids and all that stuff, the behind the scenes, and not just that, but I don't want people to think I'm pro Pablo Escobar. That's probably going to be the new joke in like Savages Unscripted, but
he
did a lot good for the community.
Yeah, go on.
You saw it more recently, but he did a lot more good for the community. Like he donated a lot of money and he helped a lot of poor families
for a certain amount of time.
But I think he was a little bit genuine about it. And I found it very creepy when people were like, they saw him as their Jesus, like their God. And I was like, wow, damn, like this guy, like, but not just that, but like I said, you know, like these villains that you see them more complexly and you don't agree with them, but you understand. And there's this subreddit on Reddit. It's called Empire Did Nothing Wrong. And it's basically a Star Wars subreddit for a community that thinks that maybe the Empire, like, you know, who we typically see as the bad guys, maybe they weren't that bad. Maybe they're just misunderstood. So there's this whole subreddit for it. It's called Empire Did Nothing Wrong. And I just think that's interesting when you can see certain characters that should be bad. And at times maybe we're too quick to say, hey, this person's bad, this person's good. Maybe it's not just simple. It's not just black and white. You know, maybe just this person has certain actions. Maybe this person has certain personality and certain reasons.
Do you think with this discussion could be applied to Trump?
I am not pro Pablo Escobar. Let me just put that out there.
Okay.
Don't get me any Pablo Escobar shirts. No, fuck. I know Elias is gonna do something with that Photoshop. He's gonna. I'm gonna stop right here. All right, now we're gonna move on.
Hey, hold on. So that's. I was actually gonna bring a counter argument to it because or actually add on to it. First of all, I was gonna say that always brings back to the discussion of perspective. You know, you don't know everyone's perspective, and that reminded me of a book I read in high school. It's called Beowulf. I don't know if you read that book.
Beowulf.
There you go, Beowulf. And there was, I think it's like a 2-book series type of thing where it talks about the knight's perspective that kills Beowulf, and then the Beowulf's perspective, the monster's perspective. And when you read both of the books together, you come to a undisclosed conclusion, because on one side the guy's doing something good by getting rid of this monster, but on the other side,
Beowulf was cocky.
Wait, what's up?
Beowulf was cocky.
Yeah, and then you hear Beowulf's side, and he's kind of lonely, depressed, and he wants to be good, but he's just misunderstood. So that always is an interesting topic to always think about. But at the end, I'm always thinking is, whatever is determined to be their fate or how they're viewed is just always like just general view, what the general population views of them or how they're marketed. So that's always, such a big impact, because at the end of the day, that's typically what happens with politics, and some other stuff I don't want to get into, but that's something that always nice to always think about.
No, actually, thanks for bringing that up, because I think a big part of the idea that you said, Renaud, about this knight, like Beowulf, that he's lonely or whatever, but I think that kind of challenges the idea of, or satirizes like this idea of what we have of fairy tales. Because when we think of fairy tales, it's just, this knight in shining armor, and he's saving this princess, and he's killing the dragon. It's very cut in stone. We know this story already. But this made me think of Shrek. I think that's why Shrek was so different and is so funny. In the end, the dragon isn't actually evil. Like freaking donkey gets with the dragon. But that's what's funny, when you get these different stories that challenge these patterns. And Shrek he's not Prince Charming. He's ugly. He's what most of us really are. He's this person that he has a nice personality in the inside, but maybe outside, not so much. Maybe other people might not see him that way. But I think there's these patterns. They're called archetypes in stories, in writing, and movies and stuff. But I think we're too used to them. This bad guy has to be bad. This good guy is perfect. He's innocent. But I think that's why those stories like Shrek are just different, and they stand out to us because they're going down this completely different route. Having a donkey as a partner is just completely weird, who's telling you about waffles, But that's very interesting. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, man. And talking about interesting stories too, I wanted to bring up a movie I recently watched too, now that I was talking about Netflix, was the movie called The Angel. And it's a really interesting series of stories where, basically a life story where there's this guy called Arshaf Marwan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is basically an Egyptian son-in-law to the president of Egypt during I forgot what years, but it was basically around the 70s, 60s, 70s, where he basically became, not a lucky person, but he married to the daughter of the president, of the Egyptian president. And it was during those times where Israel took over Egypt. And during those crucial times, this guy was such a badass, because at the end, he kind of became a double agent. And here's why. Over the time that he was in Egypt and eventually was related with this big royal family, he was able to gain political power and trust with Egypt. And what this guy was doing, he was being real sneaky. So he didn't really want a war to happen, even though Egypt had recently lost a big chunk of their empire or land from Israel. And they were planning to start a war because Israel will not give any of their land back. So what this guy was like, he was like, you know what? Hell no. Like, I'm just gonna help the other country out, while at the same time manipulating them to prevent a big continuous war to happen. So what this guy would do, he would always have intelligence. He would always pass it on to Israel, and he will gain money over time. But as the Israelites or Israelis trusted him more and more, he eventually was able to kind of basically command them, not what to do on the spot, but they would always trust his word on it. And his end goal was always to not have a war. There was, and that's a really good point, to prevent a war, just to betray your country like that. It's a controversial topic, but at the same time, it's just a general person, that's a really good way to think about it. So there was to this point that Egypt planned to start a war, and it was going to be in Yom Kippur. It was supposed to be a sneaky, start of a war where Israel wasn't going to be able to be prepared, and they would be able to take their land back. But it will lead to a huge death toll, where this guy came up and he ended up giving information to Israel so they could be somewhat prepared, and there could be a stalemate of a war. And this war isn't really well known. It's called the Yom Kippur War, but it only lasted close to 2 weeks, where both countries finally came to an agreement to just come to a peace treaty. And it's crazy how just one man was able to prevent such a huge war and so many deaths from just kind of being a double agent. Because at one point, the final information he gave before the war started, he said that they were going to start attacking Yom Kippur at 6 p.m. to the Israelites. So the Israelites were like, they were like preparing to 6 p.m. to get ready. While in reality, Egypt started attacking at 2 p.m. So he kind of, worked for both sides. He did warn them of a war, but it started 4 hours early. So within those 4 hours, Egypt was able to take huge part of their land back, at least, or some critical points. So it both benefited Egypt and Israel, because eventually they were both ready, which led to the peace treaty. And it's just crazy to me to think how just one man could change a huge outcome for this thing. And this could have really molded big part of the Middle East. You never know about this, and it's crazy and funny at the same time to me. I just wanted to bring up that story because it's sometimes, you hear so many stories of American heroes, South American, any American heroes, but you don't really hear much stories about the Middle East. So I just wanted to bring up light on that. And I don't know if you have something to say, your comments about that.
No, I was just going to say, like, something I've always been very, very intrigued by is like philosophy and ethics. And what's funny is in this situation, like, this is a guy that essentially working as a double agent, and he's lying, which is wrong. Like, ethically it's bad, but this whole idea of for the greater good, like you said, he's trying to stop a war. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever had like a philosophy or an ethics class, but those situations are very interesting. I took this ethics class in college, and I remember one of the questions we were asked was, if you're at a beach and there's like one kid drowning over here, but over in the distance there's like 3 little kids drowning, like who are you going to save? Like this one person, or maybe that one person is an adult, I don't know, but you can change the situation. But this one person or these 3 kids over here. And the thing about ethics is it's never, like I said about earlier, it's never black and white. It's never this one decision, boom, it's correct. There is no correct decision sometimes. Sometimes something can be lawful, but not good. And that's very interesting, just that idea, the line for that greater good. Must be really hard. I can just imagine.
Because at the end, what he did was kind of got down the middle and just did best for both countries, even though he was, a big part of another country. But yeah, it just seemed like a great dilemma for me. Psychologically, it's I could also view it kind of being greedy too, because you're kind of deciding your country's fate based on what you would want to come out of this. And even though the other country, is probably wanting peace, while your country wants to gain their land back, it's not your choice to do it. But at the same time, maybe this is just a small example of what really could happen between countries' decisions at times, because at times, people's decisions have been determined, but they didn't end up happening. Something else ended up going being pulled off or manipulated to do the other choice.
That's what's crazy when you're that person in the middle that's making that decision. Like, who are you to make this decision? But a lot of times you're in that moment. It's now or never. And that's what's hard. Like I said, like there's no 100% good way to do something like this. He did something that maybe to him seemed like the greater good, but there's other ways you can look at this as well. I remember completely different scenario. I've never been a double agent. I'm not a billionaire or anything like that. But years ago, we have this group of friends, and of course I'm not going to drop any names, but there's this other guy in this group, and this girl, and she was really upset with him for some reason. This friend of ours, she took things a little too personally, and she cut him off, but he didn't know that. So he's trying to reach out to her eventually, and she cut him off from her life. And he's reaching out to me and he's telling me like, hey, like, she's not responding to me. And on her end, she's like talking shit about him and moving on. And in that moment, like, I had to evaluate the situation, and I didn't tell her anything, but I told him like, hey man, just letting you know, like, she's mad at you for this. I think you should go about this like this. And in this situation, that's none of my business, like, that's not my dilemma, but it's one of those things where in that moment I acted and I decided, like, you know what? These guys are really good friends. They just miscommunicated so badly and they're not talking because of this. So I took it in my hands and I was like, hey, talk to her, tell her this. This is what she thinks is going on. And I promise you, the next day they were best friends again. Like they went out. They didn't even invite me out to lunch. But I didn't care. I was like, but my point is, in that moment, I took that upon my hands. And that's the thing sometimes, like, in retrospect, like, that wasn't my job to do that. Why did I do that? It could have gone another way, and she could have gone mad at me like, hey, why did you tell him this? Luckily it didn't, and they patched things up. But there's those moments, I think, where the ethics isn't set in stone. It's not just black and white. There's always going to be those gray areas, and that's what's very tough about any ethical dilemma.
Or you could have just made things worse too.
Yeah, see, I could, because this person, like, she was a very angry person. Like, she took things very personally, and like I said, she could have been easily like, hey, why the fuck did you tell him this? Like, she could have easily turned it on me and gotten mad at me. But I told him, hey, she's mad at you because of this. She thinks this. Talk to her. And they patched it up, and like they went out to breakfast the next day or lunch or something. And they were like, the next week they hung out like 3 times. They didn't even invite me. Like I didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever. I helped you guys. Like, that wasn't my situation, and this isn't my situation either. But
do you
communication.
Actually, what do you think is most important though? How one thing is determined as being good or bad, or how the result is translated, Because
you lost me there.
Because okay, yeah, I had lost myself too asking that question, but I'm getting somewhere.
Do you do that often? This is how you know Al is back on the show. Someone's lost.
Kind of sleepy on these meds, man, but coming back. So, like you said, taking action or not, being the middleman, is it good for you to interfere? Or let's go back to the angel. Is it good for that person to have interfered? Some people could translate it as good. He prevented a lot of deaths.
I can't compare my situation and his.
No. I'm not comparing it to yours, but I'm asking broadly though. Like,
yeah,
the angel. Some people say it was a good thing he took those decisions and became a double agent. While obviously people from his country most likely will say it was bad for him to do that. He interfered with the government's decisions. But I'm trying to go one step ahead of that, and I just think, can we just see what the results were and give more value to that than how the action was taken to get there?
The thing is, like I said, there's always going to be that gray area. And this reminds me of the whole vigilante idea. Like, if you think of Batman, he should not be taking the law into his own hands. Like, he should not be doing that. So, like, there's those whole ideas you can bring into that as well. But honestly, like, I should not have brought myself into that situation. For me, I guess I was just a little bit more personally tied to it. I've been friends with these people since high school. Like, this dilemma that happened was probably like 3 years ago. We were in college, maybe 4 years ago. So for me, I was like, you know what? I saw it as we've been friends for so long. Like, this relationship isn't working out because of a miscommunication. None of them know that. I can see that because I know both their stories and I know it's a miscommunication. And for me, it was just like, yeah, honestly, like, I didn't have to do that. not my dilemma, not my situation, but I did it. It worked out for the best. And sometimes that's how it is. Sometimes you just go with your gut. Sometimes you have personal ties to something and you just hope they work out for the best. And that's what's scary. It's not always going to work out for the best. Like you said, that could have gone terribly south. She could have been mad at me. He could have been mad at me. Like, hey, why'd you tell her this? Or, why are you guys, why is this going on? Like, why are we telling you these things? You're not a part of this situation. But that's the thing about ethics, man. It's one of those, it's like a philosophical discussion. Like, so I had a communication ethics class in college. It's one of my favorite classes. It didn't even have to do with my major. But this professor did this awesome thing. So I had a simple ethics class, and I had this communication ethics class. But this communication ethics class is the one I loved. And we played this game every now and then. But the professor would have us stand up. And I think it was called like black and white or something like that. And one wall would be white, the other side will be black. And this isn't a race thing. This has to do with the whole idea that arguments are black and white. It's just one or the other. Yes or no. No, maybe. Oh, so she would put up a dilemma, basically, like abortion. If you're for it, stand over here. If you're against it, stand over here. That's just an example. I don't even know if we did that as one, but you would choose one, and you have to choose one. You could not choose the middle. So either you're for this or you're against it. But once you're there, this is the important part, though, because at times when we're in these tough situations, I think we're like, maybe I should go with this. I'll just go with it. Or hey, there's more people on this side. I'll just go over here.
Yep.
This professor will put you on the spot, and she would ask you, why are you here? Why do you believe in this?
Oh, damn.
And there will be sometimes where someone bring in like religion. She'll be like, well, what do you believe? And I think when you're put on the spot like that, you're just like, fuck, like, what are my beliefs? Like, not just the beliefs that I inherited from my parents or this religion or this thing that I think I have to be a part of. These beliefs that I have to believe in because they're right. Like, why do I believe in this? Do I really believe in this? And she did simple stuff too. Like there was one where she said hey, if you order a pair of shoes from Amazon and they send you a pair, but you didn't get it in time, so you ask for, like another one, and they send you 2 pairs, are you going to return it or are you going to keep it? There's that ethical dilemma. Just a pair of shoes. And some people were like, oh yeah, it's a pair of shoes. It's a lot of money sometimes. Like, we will return it. And she asked, like, what if it's food? Just something small. Like, ethics doesn't have to be this big decision. It could even be something smaller. And I think we've all been in those situations where in a moment's notice, you have to decide yes or no. Should I do this or should I not? And that's what's tough about ethics. Like, at times, like, you can easily go for that middle ground, but I don't know. I think it just doesn't work. That class, man. Wow.
One, I would also like to add to that is that it could lead to a domino effect. Maybe that person who made the mistake of sending you those shoes could cost you their job if you don't return them, type of thing. Or and then it could lead to more decisions being made by just one thing. That's a domino effect. Maybe I'm stretching or not, but there's definitely something that could happen from there, depending on the situation. But then too, that also shows how complicated politics could get. This is why there's so much systems. This is representatives, Congress, the different parties, president. There's so much stuff going on. This also makes you think like they make decisions that the people don't agree with, but also could behind the scenes be beneficial for your country, your well-being. You just don't know it. Maybe it's something indirect that happened, or a domino effect, which is just not being recognized. But yeah, man.
And the shoes one is interesting. Thanks for kind of focusing on that point, because has that ever happened to you where you get a package and you accidentally get another one? You get extra something that you paid for. So this is a little bit of a funny story, actually, and I have it right here in front of me. But I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if listeners remember, but there was a book that was published 2-3 years ago. It's called Fire and Fury. It's about Donald Trump. And it's this book that this guy published, and Donald Trump was very angry about it. Like he was talking about the White House administration. He was going to publish this, and Donald Trump was super unhappy with this. I'm not hitting at this from a political standpoint. I'm not talking about politics here. But anyways, so it was this big book. And before it came out, I was like, you know what? I'm interested in this. I want to read this. So I ordered it. And Amazon told me that my copy was delivered, but it wasn't. And I was like, okay, well, it got lost. And I told Amazon, like, hey, this has got delivered. I haven't received a thing. And that's what's funny about some of these companies sometimes. Like, you have to blindly believe your customer sometimes. And that's kind of what's scary. Some people probably do abuse this system. So they told me, like, all right, you know what? We'll send you another copy. Al, my original copy came the next day. And then I got the new copy like 3 days later. And I was like, whoa, I got 2 copies of Fire and Fury, Donald Trump. You know, it's not like 2 Xboxes. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not like, oh, I finessed the system. You know, I'm a lot richer than I was. No, it's just, you know, it's $2. But at that point, I was like, you know what, I can return it, or I can give this to somebody and educate them. So I took that route, and I gave that copy to Angel. Like, you know what, I think you're lagging in your politics. I think you should read this book. And he was like, yeah, I wanted to read this, and I gave him the copy. And yeah, I actually have it right now right here in the studio, Fire and Fury. But yeah, I think we're always facing these ethical dilemmas, whether we think about it or not. Or when you order food and you get something extra, you know, you get an extra burger with your McDonald's or something. But
that's what it always comes down to, or at least what I'm thinking about right now is maybe the point of, you know, this isn't really gonna come out as a stretch, especially when we're just talking about books, but just decisions in general when it comes to, you know, the tribal way of thinking of, you know, the stronger, how is it, the stronger stay alive or something like that. You know, if you prioritize your decisions and you go for them, it doesn't matter what the other person's outcome is. It's you that is still living and is better off than the other person. It's obviously something more. It doesn't really relate to books or something like that, but it could relate to possible, you know, career decisions, or how you manage yourself with, you know, when people's interests might be in line, or, you know, you might have important decisions that could affect other people. So it's really interesting. Yeah. But I know you had something to talk about too. I know you're taking so much time.
I think it was the Netflix and the Narcos that really took up a big chunk of time. We talked about this before, but Al and I, or even, you know, Elias and myself, or, you know, that one time Beatrice and myself, we'll typically have a list like, here's things we might talk about. Like, they'll, you know, we'll give each other a list, just, you know, rough ideas. We don't have a script. It's just more so a general idea. But very rarely do we ever stick by that list. I think we went by like 2 things today out of like a lot more. And so what's funny is I wrote a list on my phone on the last episode with Elias, and I wrote down a whole list because it was very last minute. I told Elias, hey, I need the intern today. Al can't record. And it's very last minute, you know, so I need a list because, you know, it's kind of tough spurring a conversation sometimes. But also at times is something that you can just, if it's somebody you're very close with, you just do it very easily. And I had a list of like 10 topic ideas. We didn't follow one of them, but that usually happens. But yeah, we're already reaching on about an hour. Something I was just going to talk about is, I was thinking today of, because I think a few episodes ago you mentioned your mental health, and how something you want to focus on in the new year is focusing on that and giving yourself breaks and rests. And I was thinking about that today. And I was thinking, like, you know, you hear of mental health day or those me days. And I was just thinking, like, what makes a me day or a mental health day? And so today, 2-3 hours before the episode, I realized, like, there's a lot of things I want to do, things I got to do. Right now, you know, the podcast is for fun, but we're at a point where, because of consistency, we have to do it. You know, it's like that project. It's kind of a job. I'm not saying we hate it. It's a chore, man. But don't make it sound like I'm not saying it's a chore, but I came to this realization that you need things in your day that you can do without a time limit, that you can do just because you want to do it, not because you need to. You know, I think you should have those days that you don't have tasks, you know, like you don't have this checklist. I got to do this, I got to do this. And I think that's very important. So before the episode, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give myself a breather. I'm not going to read because I feel like I have to read. And so I have a record player. I put on a record. I was drinking some tea and I didn't do anything. That's it. I was just listening to it. I was just thinking of my week. I was enjoying my tea, my butterscotch tea, and that's it. And what do you do, Al, when you just want to disconnect and just have a legit breather?
I just go outside, sit in my patio, you know, like Pablo Escobar did. in those memes.
I was thinking of that meme. By himself.
Just think about it and just add some, Photoshop some bows in his ears and just listen to some possible classical music maybe, or just some really calm, soothing sounds, and just start thinking about stuff. And maybe just chill, take a breather, and just also take out my headphones, just listen around, think about what's around you, how this could develop into bigger thought for yourself. And yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, and something else like I realize is I think a lot of times too many people are afraid of their thoughts. They're afraid to just be alone and just think, but that's super important. I might have been like in high school or middle school when I realized, like, this doesn't sound weird, but I think a lot of people can agree with this. I think your most elaborate thoughts and your deeper thoughts and where you think the most are when you're laying in bed before sleeping or when you're in the shower. And those are two moments where you're by yourself. There's nobody else. Maybe, like taking a shower with somebody, saving some water, save water, savages.
Okay.
But like those are two moments where you're just alone, and I think that's important to just think. And something I've had this discussion with a friend of mine recently, like a couple of weeks ago. But so one thing about me is I have insomnia, and so a lot of people that are close to me know that, like, they text me like 2 a.m, like, I'll get back, like I'm awake. And people have asked me about that, and I think we see insomnia as this bad thing, like this reason for fatigue and tiredness, and why is he awake? Is he stressed? There's got to be a reason. But for me, sometimes I just can't sleep. I could be super freaking happy and I'll be awake till 5 a.m. I just can't sleep. But I was telling this friend of mine, like, I found a pro in my insomnia. When I'm up that late and I can't sleep, that's when I like to just listen to music and think. I have a journal I like to just write, and I like to write out my ideas. That's where a lot of the ideas I have for the podcast, I'm up at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep, and I'm thinking of this stuff, and I'm like writing it down. So I started using my insomnia for good. I started, I'm awake. Why not brainstorm right now? Let's tire my brain out, but let's get this stuff out there. Let's read. Let's do some quiet shit, but that's productive. And that's just something like I started doing. But yeah, I don't know why I shared that.
You just made me think of something before we wrap up too. At times too, we would be talking in between my classmates in business classes was, especially my entrepreneurship classes, was you hear all the stuff that the teacher tells you, the first 2 years of your business might not be successful, might not be this great, but eventually over time, once you get this down, you'll be able to grow something you want. And this, what the thing we would always want to discuss was, or think about at least, is, those successful people everyone talks about, those millionaires, those influential people. I wonder at times how happy they could be if you compare them to a person, who's a lazy fuck, maybe just has a part-time job, lives in a trailer home and just has a nice partner. How, and if they're just satisfied enough with that, is there... And this is something too, I've been having the dilemma. Not that I want to be in the trailer park or anything, but I'm saying, like, at times, how far should you go in order to obtain happiness? Because at the end of the day, I feel like this is what all we're doing is for, It's not to survive every day. If that's it, then that's not really great.
Yeah.
But at times, it's maybe, their decisions, how far they're willing to go, what how you have to sacrifice for possibly something you want. This is a really broad discussion I'm bringing up here, but it just makes me think to that, maybe just thinking, but maybe something the savages could think about.
I just don't think any sort of materialism could ever bring you true happiness. Perfect example, you and me, like our Xboxes, like we have fun playing it.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I'm sure when we first got it, each of us, we were super happy, but it's one of those things where if we're not thinking about it, we can still have a shitty day. We could forget about it, and we easily forgot about it. I haven't played mine in a few weeks, but it doesn't bring me that same happiness anymore. I enjoy playing it when I play it, but having that doesn't make my life any better. I think materialism doesn't bring happiness. For me, honestly, I think it's finding purpose, some sort of purpose, and knowing what you want to do in life. Like right now with the podcast, I'm gonna be honest. I've been sharing ideas with Elias and our newbie. That's what I'll call him for now. I'll see what he thinks about that nickname when he listens to the podcast. The newbie. the newbie. But yeah, so I've been discussing a lot of ideas for this podcast and the other projects that we have. And I know a lot of people are probably a little annoyed, like, you guys talk about these projects, but where are they? Like, like the thing with our podcast, like we talk about it for months. We don't want to just drop it and make any mistakes. But anyways, like with these ideas that we have and what we've accomplished, like I feel the sense of achievement, and I feel like I'm doing something, and every day I'm figuring out more. What are we going to do? What do I want to make of this? How can I apply myself more? And a big thing, I've told you this, Al, when we're talking to other people and possibly collabing people, we're not looking at, we like this person. It's more so, what can they bring for this? What can we offer for this? We want to use each other's skills. And I've been really content and happy with this. And I'm not financially, like I'm not this super rich person, but I've been realizing more. I think it's that purpose, the knowing what you want to do and how are you going to obtain this, in terms of that podcast, like this whole thing, this project, we have this idea of what we want, but every day it's changing, but we're adding on it. And that makes me feel good. Like, I don't know if that makes you feel good, but that makes me feel really good. But we're not getting anything out of this yet. We're not really getting paid yet. Like we have finally kind of like a paid sponsor now, but we're not now just buy a freaking office in a building and shit. We're not rich, but that materialism isn't there, but I'm really content and I feel really good. And I think it's that sense of purpose. What do you want to do? Is this really what you want? And are you doing it? What are you willing to do for it? And I think that's what it is. Damn, another TED Talk.
We just popped these out of like nothing. But yeah, this is a really great way to end the episode. Just dropping our Instagram. Follow us at savages.unscripted and Twitter.
Yeah, follow the Savages Unscripted Twitter. It's there. We're going to start posting more. We have ideas. If you guys tell us more stuff and you communicate with us, that'd be great. We want to hear more reviews, and we would like to share those reviews too anonymously. We won't say your name, but that'd be really nice. We want to thank you guys, and we want you guys to hear how thankful we are. A few episodes, somebody gave me some feedback. I shared it on here, and she was happy that we talked about it. I didn't give her a direct shout out and say her name, but I think that shows that, we do listen to you guys, and you guys listen to us. That's great. We really do appreciate that.
We could make a special segment of this, just an episode where we dedicate this, or a video. We could call it Anonymous Unscripted. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And we could just go from there. But this has been your boys, Papi Chulo, signing off with...
You have to say the nickname for me, Al. I'm not saying it.
Signing off with the Stallion.
Hey, it's Hector, you guys.
And we're out.
Goodbye.